My name is Phinees. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. My heritage, I'm Haitian, born in New York, but my family's from Haiti. I would say I'm 38 years, if I counted the last 2 years. I'm 38 years old.
Okay.
About myself, I guess I'm a very passionate techie musician who loves advocating for children. And I love bringing people together in efforts to create some kind of change, whether it's locally or abroad. I like to use my talents in both music and technology to bring otherwise people who don't gather to gather for one cause to create some kind of equitable outcome. I'm excited to speak to you about not just myself, but just things that I'm really proud of being part of.
Okay.
That beyond me that can help this beautiful city.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. How did you end up here in Lynchburg? And then tell me too a little bit about like your background in music.
Okay, so I went to Liberty University back in 2004. At first, a lot of people don't know this, I was going to consider playing basketball, but by the time I reached on campus, I was like, I didn't want to be a walk-on. I wasn't recruited. But at the time, I attended Brooklyn Tabernacle. That's my church I went to. They did basketball camps, so I met the coach and everything like that. So my friend, Stephen and Maurice, he was in the gospel choir. They came a year prior, so I went to college for a week, and I loved the school. It wasn't my initial choice. I had waiting lists on NYU. I was on waiting lists on John Jay, waiting lists Kingsborough, and all those local schools. So I was like, let me get out of state. So I went there 04 to 07. It was during that era. I'd say I went to school for initially mass communication, which now they turn it to sonic arts if they were to be back then. But I wanted to use my broadcasting and music career together. They didn't have that degree back then. So I entered that space for mass communication to then, see that I could use my skills in both editing, video shooting, and in my music capabilities. So during the time I was in Liberty, I was very involved locally, because I played for a band, the Case Project. We played all over, and Joanza Hall and Michelin Hall, they had a coffee shop called the Mezzanine. So I was always there, like almost once a month there. And we played live shows, and that was very vibrant during that time. A lot of bands, I think some musicians are still playing actively, started their career playing in these places, in coffee shops. So we fast forward, I left 07 from Liberty. I went back home to New York, and this was just right at the cusp of gentrification. This is where like all the brothers who sagging, they now skinny jeans and skateboarding. It was a culture shock for me coming back to that, and a lot of stuff changed. And guess what was during that time? The financial crisis, right? I entered back home to then collaborate with my brother, my older brother. His name is Jameer. He's also a musician as well, but now he's a real estate insurance. But at that time, he was working at MTV, and he knows a lot of people in the industry that work with Sean John, Puff Daddy, and Nickelodeon. So he would do these music showcases in these rock and roll venues like the Bitter End or Kenny's Castaways and stuff like that. And he's an R&B soul singer. So I was like his music director. He was like, hey, bro, get a band together. So during that economic crisis, we was gigging everywhere. I think that was kind of like my intro to the music industry, because through my brother, I was able to learn how to book a show or how to get endorsements and sponsorship. And he was also at the same time was a teaching artist for a creative outlet, which was a legendary dancer, Ron Faison, his brainchild company that he worked under, that he helped develop the underserved kids in music. So I played with him around New York City and stuff, and that opened a lot of doors for me, even today, that I've been able to benefit playing for a lot of musicians and producers and artists.
When you talk about playing, I just want to make sure, so you're...
I play guitar.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that I covered the basis of what your, what you do with
So for my brother, I played guitar.
Okay.
It was a really interesting time, because as I was playing guitar for him in the band, I was also developing my skills in video. I told you I went to school for it, but also in my home family, I feel like there's a thread of being entrepreneur who could then also have like a business per se for the public, but also or a teacher or a lawyer or architect, which are people that are in my family who have those trades. I just happen to be the techie, who breaks the VCR or breaks the tape recorder and fixes it, So I think that structure or that curiosity as a young age, even when my brother used to taught me when I was 6, 7, learning how to multi-track from tape deck, like cassette tapes. I didn't know that was audio engineering. So all these little nuances that I was able to do in my household for fun translated into opportunities where even now as a grown man that I'm able to operate from. And I'm very thankful for that. So having the opportunity really helped me grow as a musician and a techie, I guess.
So that's up there. You went back, right? Okay. So then what happened next? What led you,
Okay. So to fast forward after that, I played for Brooklyn Tabernacles, amazing ministry. I was able to play for them. And I felt like around 2015, I felt like I needed more. And I felt like I was at the point where I just needed to leave New York, just the rat race. And I was doing so much, both in business, marketing, and then music industry stuff, and then church, all these things. So I just needed to come back. So I reconnected with Juwanza, and I was like, let me check it out. And around that time, I got to reconnect with my, I guess, college crush. We reconnected on Facebook. And so her Cuban cousin lived in New York. So we connected in 2016. I was like, yeah, I'm coming. So I moved back here. Got engaged 2017, and then 19, 20 kids, that whole fairy tale. So I moved back here for the sake of my future. And also I just saw myself that I needed to grow my family and myself outside of New York, because that's not the place that I would want my family to live, I guess.
So kind of, while we're talking about Lynchburg, why have you stayed? What have you loved so much about this community? And it sounds like you were here just as a college student for that duration. That's totally different than living here as a resident. You went away, came back. What's kept you here? What have you enjoyed seeing as it evolves?
As a college student, it was one thing.
Yeah.
But as an adult, and you're paying taxes, and you're putting where your money is, where you see where all the dollars is, where it's going. It just didn't make no sense. It didn't make no sense staying in New York. And in Lynchburg, I saw a lot of my friends who graduated, stayed here. It's like, you know what? I wouldn't be a complete stranger. So I moved here. I moved to Harrison Street, went to the White Hart. That's where I got reconnected with Juwanza. And then I worked with Blackwater Branding since 2017, doing all the media, social media and video, and just been phenomenal. But one thing I know for sure Lynchburg has that New York doesn't have is the access to meet all these creative entrepreneurs. One thing kind of was cool, like even coming to the White Hart or even doing events, like I don't know the person, but because they like what you're doing, like here's keys, like here's the keys. You can use my studio XYZ. I'm like, okay. Like in New York, people just like try to screw you over or try to do you bad. But here, I feel like a black man who comes to an establishment like owned by non-blacks just comes give you a keys and you could do it in an event. That would have not ever happened for me, Started at Riverview's Art Space. Then from there, we did events integrating live music with live art and collaborating with the Riverview Art Space and all these other things. It's like, I would not have not done that in New York. It was just so much red tape and so much, I guess, jealousy. I don't know. So being here made me felt like this culture accepted me with all my crazy ideas and they saw it as a beautiful thing. And I'm really proud that to then create a sense of culture that I kind of missed in New York. Then I was able to kind of leverage my knowledge, again, learn from the music industry to technology and being able to bring people together. And White Hart is one of those places.
So let's say people reading this article, never heard of you, don't know who you are. How do you say, who are you here in Lynchburg? And what do you do? It sounds like you have so many different things going on.
So there's a pastor, Bernard. He said something really amazing. There are people who their life goal is to be a king or queen, be the top king and queen. I'm a king and queen maker. I make people become a king or a queen. I'm in the front sometimes, but a lot of times the things that really happen for people to benefit, somebody had to either do or connect the dots. I'm a king and queen maker.
For who specifically?
For people who have aspiring dreams to accomplish something, whether it's a nonprofit or whether it's a clothing brand or whether it's a podcast, whether it's a musician, artist, or, I want to meet these people, let's do something, whatever. So being a king and queen maker, you're doing is you're taking the best people in different personalities. You're bringing them in one place. I just happen to have that gift of having multiple skills, not just in music, but also in communicating ideas, so people can see the, broader picture, not just one thing. Goal is really having people at a place where they could feel seen, but also network and also see, we have a lot of things in common. And it's just a plus that I'm able to play music and, entertain. But that's just something I realized that's my gift.
So lead me up to what you were doing here before your residency at the Academy. Okay,
so when I came here, I actually started as a DJ. I was working with Drunken Prats. And that was really good, but it didn't align me so much. It didn't align so much of my lifestyle I wanted to do. It was very tiring, like driving back and forth. It was good pay, but I didn't want to DJ. I remember, why you didn't want to DJ, but you're producing music? Well, then again, I just needed something with a little more stability. So I started then working at CVFP as patient services, front desk. And then eventually later, right before the pandemic, I did a course at the CVCC, getting my IT certification, which ironically, even in New York, I was always involved in tech, like doing the tech expos and, work with Microsoft and Nintendo doing product testing. So I had the actual experience and the knowledge, but of course you gotta have the paper to show proof to it. So, and even during that time, I was still working with Joanza and Michelin
at
Blackwater branding. So all the stuff we did with Vector Space and Riverview's Art Space, where there's video editing, where there's, capturing things. And then,
that was you.
That was me. That was us as a team.
Okay.
My crazy idea in that was like, hey, let's do live events. Then we do, the live music with the art and stuff. So that was the idea that I helped put together, that they helped, find the right people. And that did pretty well. Opened some of the doors for others to kind of continue on doing their variations of that. But the most important thing really, again, I think I felt like I was operating in my skills and not just music, but also communicating ideas so that the people and businesses that are actually benefiting of having all these different kinds of people where they never been before, I was able to kind of gather. So I'm very grateful that I'm able to have that. And so while I was working with Blackwater branding, I was, every 2-3 years I was jumping from job.
Right.
So then after I got my certification at CVCC in IT, I worked at Johnson Health Center during the pandemic. That was really awesome because I got to meet these amazing doctors. And of course there was a lot of scarcity. And
what did you do with them?
I was an IT. I was an IT specialist. And I met some amazing people. Worked in the hospital, birth and center, all these places, And then after that, I eventually actually wanted to work at Lynchburg City Schools, which I work in right now, because my wife at the time, she worked at Lynchburg City Schools. She was a fourth grade elementary teacher. So I was like, it'll be cool. We could work together, But obviously there was no opening. So I had the way to kind of work through applying when there was openings to then become an IT help desk technician there, which I still serve right now.
And that's what you do. You do that now.
Right.
Okay. So is that like a full-time? You do that?
It's full-time.
So you've got that. And then we have the academy.
So
and
the
then
academy.
Band. I'm just connecting.
So how you connect with the academy. So now Michelin, she exited Blackwater maybe around 2018, 19 or 19 or 20.
Okay.
Around that time. Then she works for the academy.
Yep.
So during that time, I guess, I would say fast forward since last year, my friend Nick George was an artist resident. So I didn't know much about it. But what I do know, which is interesting now, people in different positions, Michelin's, she's the director there. So she was like, hey, why don't you have Phinees as an artist resident? I was like, that's cool. So I didn't know what that was, but I definitely know the closest I could describe one of my favorite musicians in New York, Wilton Marsalis. He's the artist resident at the Lincoln Center. So it's like, overseeing projects and stuff. And I work at Lynchburg City Schools. So I'll be working with the kids, I'll record them. So it's not anything new that I've done. So be able to be working with the academy, and I've been working with them outside the capacity of this. I've DJ'd their events and other things, and I'm familiar with a lot of the people who work there. Like Anderson, who is the head of sound, he trained me to lifestyle because we went to the same church. So it's cool. Like everyone I know there, being an artist resident was proposed by Michelin Hall. So, hey, consider this. And I was like, okay, let me give it a try. And now all of the years of the experience that I'm able to kind of integrate within, doing the events and like recording people and like bringing everyone together with the objective of like creating collaborations, just kind of highlighting this beautiful city, advocating those artists as well. In that way, kind of allowed me to amplify that. Now with the band situation, that was a whole different story.
That's okay. So just wanting to kind of tie up on the Academy. How long is that? When did that start for you?
Yeah, so officially it started January.
Okay.
And it ends, it's just a year.
1 year. Okay. And so just to be clear, what is it exactly that you hope to get out of this and that you're doing for them during that year?
It was very interesting because since 2016, 17, when I moved here, I have a lot of musicians, amazing. They stay and then they go. I'm like, but you need these people to fill your spaces with either music or art. And it's very difficult because Lynchburg kind of was somewhat passively relying on like the colleges. To, come and support. So like locally, if you really have a thriving venue or a space, all you need is live music and something consistent. And the whole trouble of people staying here, if you're a musician, was consistency. So that's something that I wanted to solve. Whereas, okay, maybe one time a week, one time a month, we'll have something that people can come together, enjoy, bring your kids, bring your family, friends. The band concept, Selah, actually Keith Thomas, he's also an amazing musician. He plays organ and keys for the band. And we was talking, like, man, like, it'll be cool to have like a unit of guys. And some of the guys I knew that kind of moved back here played. It was like, they're not really doing much. And I was like, just give it a try, just to jam out, nothing, no commitment, just come together as in a brotherhood. And it formed in itself beyond the band because we started in September. I'm just doing a live open mic. Just as people come through, you could play, you could sing, and it grew exponentially because.
So when would you say that band like really started?
September last year.
Okay, of 23. Okay.
And then he was like, yeah, we're playing around here and there, but let's just have a central place.
How many people make up that band?
Oh, there's different iterations. So it started with a trio, me, Brad Cox, and Keith Thomas. And then when we expand here, where we do every third Sunday, with the exception of May, because we're doing the fourth Sunday, you have Andre Harrison. You also have Charles Bailey on a bass. So it's expansion. And Amelia, she played violin. So Selah is not me. It's a culture. It's a culture. It's a movement of people, musicians who are like, we're tired of playing these dead end gigs and not having fulfillment. The fulfillment aspect is the lack of consistency. What we did, we created a space for people to create, whether you're doing live poetry or singing or playing or even live art.
But it's underneath that name, I guess.
I guess it's underneath that name because it's a concept. It's a similar concept to where you see these big bands. It's not a front facing artist. Okay, it's literally a culture of like, it's an idea of,
which is something I guess people are just not really used to. That's kind of a new.
They're not used to that.
At least here.
I'm not from here, but I live here. I'm from New York. And building the concept of building a community instead of a ideological band or a person or persona. When you build a community, that's bigger than building a name and a band, because you could take the concept that was done here in Richmond, you could take in LA, you could take in Canada. It's not an individual, it's an actual community of people. Because if I'm not here, it will do it well by itself because people know where it is, they know what time, they just show up. Outside of me, I feel like everyone has felt invested in being part of that.
So what are some, as we kind of move into, say, the rest of the year or even just beyond that, what are some of your personal goals? What do you hope for yourself, for this city? What would you like to see?
What would I like to see? I've been paying attention a lot to Memphis, Tennessee. I have some friends there, and they actually have a grant that allows venues have a stipend, like it's $250 for an act, no draw required, but it's like a stipend for people who wants to perform, and those venues that are like certain venues that they could choose from in the city, that they could get into that artist fund, that they could pay those musicians or artists, whatever, to do what they do. But in return, that really brings business. And on top of that, I really want to see, because I work with a lot of really talented kids, doing the City Strings Orchestra collaboration with the Academy and Ginger Paris, that opened my eyes, because we're going to die. And these kids don't know who does what, and the problem with that is because people are not reaching out to the curious to say, hey, here's what I do. You want to learn this? So I'm really very thankful the studio that I'm at right now. We partnered with iron lives to do this program. But outside of that, I feel like somebody's got to take care of the business when we're gone. So why not us? So being in that example, which is why I have these events kid friendly, you might have a kid, you know, who might have autism, but like they're so calm when they listen to live music. Maybe that's their leaning. Maybe connect with the drummer who teaches drum lessons and stuff. That, you know what I'm saying? Like, people don't understand that we have everything we need now. And if we don't show up, we wouldn't know. And my goal is really to answer the question of, like, how can we benefit the future? Like the kids who may not have, you know, money to travel around here, but they, you know, ride their bike and they need a job, but they love music. They know how to record themselves. They don't know how to make money. What if I told you could just go here at this day and then you can meet someone who's in an industry? So I want to create that bridge, that professionals who are doing it really well, that can connect with people who are curious, that can, you know, kind of pass it forward in a way.
What other messaging do you want to get across in this article?
What I want to get across is several things. The first thing, 3 things. First thing, don't allow appearances be the judgment of your success. When I say that is, I feel like there's a different kind of gatekeeping that people do with themselves, because if they look a certain way, they don't think there is a certain acumen of business or of knowledge. You'd be surprised how much you need those people in your life, because they bring a perspective that your life living here would not ever have. My second one, allow curiosity be the leading point of innovation, because with curiosity, you're forced to be vulnerable, but then also learn something that you haven't experienced. And it allow you to also see an outcome that would not have been presenting itself if it haven't really been up to your curiosity. Just getting to know the person or getting to know the culture, and then a skill set that comes with that. And last but not least, it's really, really important to not just, collaboration is a very vague term, but it's really important to be very intentional and understanding that through collaborating with other people, there's an actual problem that you're solving through that. And I tell a lot of people, even beyond this interview, I have clients too. It's like, yeah, you're talented. That's nothing. That's nothing. Like, what's your story? I feel like when you're collaborating and you're doing this work, don't be afraid to share your story, because chances are people want to hear that. People who may identify as you, who may look like you or aspire to be you or what you're doing. If you don't know how to tell your story, how are you going to make a change in your space or in your life? So I feel like when people are not afraid to share their story, it will open a lot of doors and break a lot of barriers. That's what I have to say. Those 3 things.
Perfect. What have I not asked? What else is important to know about you, about the work that you're doing, about you as a person, you know, maybe even outside of the work that you do, the things that you enjoy doing just on your free time? You have a family.
A family, yeah. I have 2 kids and now a dog and a cat and my wife. Something about me, a lot of people don't know. It's obvious because I use hand gestures and stuff. You know, I'm neurodivergent. I don't know what degree of the neurodivergent I am in, but I think that's a superpower. Mm-hmm. I feel like I choose certain things to be ignorant in, so that way it doesn't infiltrate and it distract me from my purpose and goal. And maybe that's just because I'm just stubborn sometimes, and out of ignorance of stubbornness, because my lack of awareness, I'm able to tunnel focus on things that people, don't do that. I'm like, I could go off the ledge because I haven't had the experience to do so. You have, and you know, that's your experience. So I think through my autism or my ADHD, whatever label that the science has claimed us creatives, we have to think about it. we are the people who shape the world. Like,
your brain works so
my brain
in a different way.
It's different. You know, they say the neurodivergent brain, like, we have coffee to slow our brain chemistry down because there's too many connections on both sides. So I guess the left and right brain side of me, I don't separate them, because it's kind of like this conversation with you is like, okay, I know I haven't met you yet before, but just knowing the kind of person you are, reading all your articles, I could tell the kind of person you are in person. That's the kind of person how I am. Like, I don't have to meet you to know who you are. It's how you represent yourself or how other people say about you. So kind of like the same, you know, for me. So I guess my self-discovery of the awareness of where I am, it's not a deficit, not a negative thing, or what they say. It doesn't take away from who I am, but it just makes me understand. It makes a lot of sense why the way I am, because that way it helps me communicate better. And also, it also helps me understand that, you know, this is a strength that I can utilize, you know what I'm saying? The ignorance or the lack of some awareness to be this creative and also be able to do things that some people go to school for. And I haven't, because it's like it flows, you know what I'm saying? They say it's savantism for some people. Say, oh, you do this so natural. How are you going to say? I don't know. I just do it. It's kind of like that. And I think that I'm understanding and accepting that just because the world don't accept some quirks, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. So I've learned to accept that and embrace that, because there's people who can't speak to themselves. And I'm be willing to learn how to speak for myself to hopefully inspire someone to speak on themselves as well.
Okay.